I opened the email with shaking fingers. My heart was thumping so loud I thought someone might hear it. Congratulations, Aria. That was all I needed to see. A full ride. Away. Finally. I blinked hard and shut the laptop quickly like it might disappear if I looked at it too long. Zayd. Mom yelled from the kitchen. Check the classifieds again. You can't just sit there. He didn't even lift his head. Relax, Mom. Not like Aria's gonna support us anytime soon. I stayed quiet. Mom shot me a look. You could at least help your brother figure out what to do. I'm not his planner, I muttered. Zayd scoffed. She thinks she's better than us now. What, you get a B+ on a test or something? I wanted to say it. I really did. I wanted to scream I got in. I'm leaving. I won. But I didn't. Not here. Not in this place where even victories get poisoned. Instead, I stood up and took my plate to the sink. Where are you going? Mom asked. My room. You didn't clean up the table. I didn't answer. Inside my room, I shut the door and locked it. My hands were still trembling. I took out a notebook and wrote across the top, things I will never allow again. 1. Their voices in my head. 2. 3. Feeling guilty for breathing. 4. 5. Shrinking so someone else can shine. 6. 7. Carrying what they refuse to fix. 8. I paused and stared at number 1. Their voices. Zayd telling me I'm dramatic. Mom saying I owe them everything. Dad saying nothing at all. I grabbed my bag from under the bed and started folding clothes. Slowly. One item at a time. This wasn't a celebration. It was survival. There was no cake, no hugs, no proud smiles. Just silence, broken by the sound of my own breathing. I zipped the bag and sat on the floor beside it. I'm going, I whispered. They just don't know it yet. And they won't. Not until I'm already gone. I stood in the kitchen, cracking eggs into a pan that had seen better days. Mom was in her usual spot, perched by the counter, scrolling through her phone. Zayd sat at the table, already on his 3rd cup of coffee, scrolling through job listings. It felt like every morning had started the same way for the last few years. But today, everything was different. I was leaving. Mom glanced up. Aria, stop dawdling and finish making breakfast. Zayd's got an interview at 10. I didn't respond. I just kept stirring the eggs, pretending like I wasn't counting down the minutes until I could walk out the door for good. Zayd sighed dramatically. You know, I swear you make these eggs too runny. How hard is it to get them right? I clenched my jaw. How hard is it to just be a decent person? Mom didn't even look up. Don't be rude, Zayd. Aria's trying her best. I froze. Trying my best? For them, always trying my best. But did they ever care? No. I had been invisible for so long, it was as if I didn't even exist unless I was the one doing all the work. The cleaning. The cooking. The pretending like everything was fine. Zayd snorted. Yeah, well, I don't need her charity. I need a real job. Not like she's getting hired anywhere with those grades. He shoved his phone toward me like it was a weapon. You're probably just getting into that college because they feel bad for you, huh? A tight knot formed in my stomach. My hands shook as I put the plate in front of him. You don't even know what I've been through. Shut up, Zayd, I said quietly, trying to steady my breath. But it wasn't quiet enough. Mom shot me a look. Watch your tone. I turned away and grabbed my own plate, suddenly uninterested in the breakfast I'd worked hard to make. I didn't answer them anymore. Not today. Not ever again. I sat at the table, barely touching my food, already feeling the weight of what I was about to do. In this house, nothing was ever enough. And today, for the first time in my life, I was enough for me. I stood up, leaving my plate half-eaten. I'm done here, I muttered before heading to my room. They wouldn't know the real reason until I was gone. I sat on the edge of my bed, my phone in my hand, staring at the screen. The family group chat was buzzing with messages. My mom, as usual, was sending voice notes. Zayd was spamming emojis. Dad hadn't said a word. I didn't need to hear their voices anymore. Not after everything they'd put me through. I took a deep breath, opened the chat, and typed, "Don't contact me again. I'm done playing your daughter." I hit send. It felt like nothing, but also like everything. I was done. For good. I closed the app and tossed my phone onto the bed. My chest felt tight. My heart pounded, but I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. I wasn't going to let their guilt, their manipulation, weigh me down anymore. I was free. A message from Zayd popped up a few seconds later. Hi, you think you're so special now? Keep running from your responsibilities. My finger hovered over the screen, ready to respond, but I didn't. I blocked him. I blocked Mom. I blocked Dad. The silence was deafening, but for the first time in years, it felt peaceful. I paced around the room for a moment, my mind racing. Was this what freedom felt like? This emptiness? I shook my head. It didn't matter. I had a scholarship. I had a future. And they could stay in their little world of dysfunction. I grabbed my jacket from the chair, zipped up my bag, and took one last look around the room. This was the last thing I was ever leaving behind. Without looking back, I walked out of the door. It was over. I sat at the desk in my new dorm room, the hum of the campus outside faintly reaching me. My laptop was open, but I wasn't here to do schoolwork. No, today was different. Today I was going to write the things I could never say. I opened a blank document and stared at the cursor blinking on the screen. I wasn't sure where to start. Maybe I should begin with Mom. She always had the most to say. I started typing, my fingers slow at first. Dear Mom, I don't even know where to begin with you. You always said you loved me, but your love felt like a leash. You wanted me to be who you wanted, to be perfect, to be everything for everyone except for myself. You pushed me so hard that I forgot what it felt like to be happy. Every time I took a step forward, you found a way to make it feel like I was failing. You told me I was ungrateful, but you never asked if I was okay. I remember the way you'd guilt-trip me, the way you'd act like everything was my fault. I remember the silence when I was hurting, the way you'd pretend not to see it, or worse, accuse me of being dramatic. Maybe you never knew what it was like to feel invisible in your own home. Maybe you still don't. But here's the truth, I'm done. I'm done being your daughter who carries all your emotional baggage. You never asked me what I needed, and I'm not asking anymore. Not from you, not from anyone. I stopped typing and stared at the screen. My hands were trembling, my heart pounding. This was it. This was what I had been holding back for years. The words I never said, the pain I never shared. I closed the document, not sending it. It felt good to get it out, even if it was just for me. Next, I opened a new letter. Dear Zayd, you were never my protector, no matter how much you wanted to believe you were. You hurt me over and over, but you never cared. You thought that because you were the golden child, you could treat me like dirt. You mocked my achievements, crushed my dreams, and I just let you. I let you because I thought you were family. But no more. Not anymore. I didn't finish. I didn't need to. I erased it, wiped my eyes, and closed the laptop. They'd never read these letters, but writing them felt like finally reclaiming a part of me that had been missing for so long. Aria. I froze mid-step. That voice, I knew it even before I turned. Zayd. He was leaning against a campus bench like he belonged here. His stupid smirk made my stomach twist. How the hell did you even get in here? I asked, keeping my distance. He shrugged. Your little campus isn't that secure. Besides, you've been ignoring everyone. Thought I'd do you a favor and show up in person. I looked around. Students passed by, unaware of the storm brewing in my chest. I told you not to contact me. Yeah. Don't contact me again. Big dramatic exit. He grinned. Thought you'd grow out of your little victim complex by now. I clenched my fist. Why are you here? To talk some sense into you. He stepped closer. You think you're better than us now? Full ride, big school, new friends? Newsflash, none of this changes who you really are. Who I really am? My voice cracked. You mean the girl who stayed quiet while you called her names? Hit her? Lied about her? Zayd chuckled. Oh please. You always made everything so dramatic. You wanted people to feel bad for you. You were never strong enough to fight back. Something inside me snapped. I stepped forward and, without thinking, swung my fist. It connected. The sound was small, but the shock on his face was everything. He stumbled back, holding his cheek, more surprised than hurt. A couple of students nearby gasped. One even pulled out their phone. You want to know who I really am? I said, breathing hard. I'm the girl who stopped being afraid of you. Zayd straightened, face red. You're insane. No. I'm finally sane. And you don't get to follow me into this new life. Not anymore. Luca appeared beside me, eyes wide. Everything okay? Yeah, I said, staring at Zayd. I'm just done cleaning up after people who never cared about me. Zayd opened his mouth, then shut it. He turned and walked off without another word. And just like that, for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. I woke up to a dozen missed calls. Zayd. I didn't bother listening to the voicemails. I already knew what they'd say, something about how I embarrassed him, how I'd lost control. Probably even something about me needing help. Classic Zayd flipping the story. But then Yara sent me a message, check your socials. Now. My stomach dropped. I opened the app and there it was, Zayd's post. A picture of his swollen cheek. Captioned, when your scholar sister thinks violence is power. Pray for her mental health. The comment section was already a war zone. half pitying him, half calling me unstable. I could barely breathe. But then I saw it. Talia had commented, "Tell them why you really got punched, Zayd. Or should I post the screenshots?" I blinked. Screenshots? My heart started pounding. He replied with a string of emojis and a Elmeo chill. She didn't chill. The screenshots came next, text after text of him threatening me, mocking my depression, laughing about how easy it was to get away with everything because Mom always backed him. Then the gambling receipts. Screenshots of him begging her for money, lying about bills, asking to borrow her credit card. And then came the final one, a screen recording of a voice message he sent her, bragging about how he could ruin me with one tweet. I stared at the screen in disbelief. The likes were climbing fast. The sympathy turned to disgust. His followers turned on him within hours. My phone lit up again. Zayd was calling. I didn't answer. Instead, I turned to Luca, who had been quietly watching. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "Yeah." I didn't lift a finger this time. He smiled. "Guess karma finally did." I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence wash over me. Felt still. Not empty, just still. Peaceful. Zayd had spent years building a version of himself everyone loved. It took one truth to burn it all down. And I didn't even have to touch the match. My phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. Then it buzzed again. Same number. I sighed, answered, and didn't say a word. "Aria?" My father's voice was quiet, shaky. "It's me." I didn't respond. I saw everything online. Your brother, what he did. I didn't know it was that bad. "You did," I said, voice low. "You just didn't want to admit it." He went silent. Then, "I'm sorry. I should have protected you." I almost laughed. "Should have? You watched him hit me and told me not to cause drama. You called it a sibling fight. I was trying to keep peace in the house." "No. You were trying to avoid choosing sides." I clenched the phone tighter. "And you chose. Every time." His breathing grew heavier. "I miss you, kiddo. Your mom, she's been crying." We didn't know how far it had gone. "She's crying because the internet found out," I snapped. "Not because she cares. Not because it hurt her to see me hurt. She just hates that people finally see the truth." "I know we failed you," he whispered. "But can't we talk? Just once." "We're talking now. And this is all you get." He was crying now. I could hear it. But I felt nothing. No sympathy. No warmth. Just a calm, cold wall between us. "I forgave you a long time ago," I said, my voice steady. "But that doesn't mean I want you in my life." I hung up. Later I opened my email. One unread message from Mom. Subject, "Come home." I didn't click it. I just hovered for a second, then hit delete. Luca glanced at me from across the room. "You good?" "Yeah," I said, exhaling. "They're not sorry I left. They're sorry they lost control." He nodded. "That's different." "Exactly." I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window. I thought cutting them off would make me feel angry. Or hollow. But what I felt was power. I wasn't the scared girl hiding behind closed doors anymore. I was the one closing them. I sat in the therapy room, legs crossed, hands picking at a loose thread on my sleeve. "So," my therapist said gently, "what brought you here today?" I looked at her. Honest eyes. Soft tone. No judgment. "I don't want to feel broken anymore," I whispered. She nodded. "Then let's start there." That was weeks ago. Now I walk through campus without checking over my shoulder. I sleep through the night without replaying their voices in my head. It's not perfect, but it's progress. "Wanna come to open mic tonight?" Luca asked one evening, nudging me with his elbow. I hesitated. "Me? Speak." "Yeah. You've got stories, Aria. Real ones. Say them out loud." So I went. I stood on that tiny wooden stage with shaking hands and a heart that wouldn't stay still. "I used to think silence was strength," I began. But silence almost destroyed me. The crowd was quiet. Every eye on me. I lived in a house where love was measured in obedience. Where pain was dismissed as weakness. Where I learned to fold myself into the smallest version possible just to survive. My voice cracked. But I didn't stop. I left. And it hurt. But now I'm learning to speak. A long pause. Then applause, real, loud, warm applause. Luca met me after. "You killed it." I didn't cry. "You were honest. That's braver." Later that night, I stood in front of the mirror. For a long time, I just stared. Same brown eyes. Same jawline. Same everything. But something was different. I see you now, I whispered to my reflection. And I'm proud of you. She didn't flinch. She didn't hide. She stood tall. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was beginning to live. No more folding. No more shrinking. Just me, loud, imperfect, healing. And finally, free. The black gown felt heavy on my shoulders, but it wasn't the fabric. It was everything it symbolized. 4 years. 4 years of rebuilding from scratch. 4 years of therapy, quiet rage, sleepless nights, and slow healing. And now I stood in line with my class, ready to cross a stage I never thought I'd reach. Aria Khan, the dean called out. I walked forward. No applause from a family section. No signs. No camera flashing from the crowd. Just silence and then my own feet hitting the stage. I took the diploma with a steady hand and looked out into the audience. I didn't search for familiar faces. They weren't there. But I didn't need them anymore. Later, at the reception, Luca handed me a small cupcake with a single candle. No family, no problem, he smiled. You made it here alone. That's worth more. I lit the candle and whispered, to me. He raised his cup. To you. My phone buzzed during the reception. A text from an unknown number. We're proud of you, Aria. Love, Mom and Dad. I stared at it for a long time, then locked my phone without responding. They're still trying to get in? Luca asked gently. Yeah, I said. But it's too late. The version of me who needed their approval, she doesn't exist anymore. That night, I watched a video someone posted of my speech. Sometimes surviving your own family is the bravest thing you'll ever do. And sometimes walking away isn't selfish, it's survival. I walked away. And I don't regret it. The comments were full of strangers saying thank you, sharing their stories, their pain, their escape. It hit me then, I wasn't just healing for me. I was proof that walking away doesn't make you weak, it makes you free. Graduation wasn't the end of my journey. It was the day I realized the world wasn't as small as the house I left behind. And for once, I didn't feel like I was running away. I felt like I was finally walking toward something. I found the notebook while packing up my dorm room, creased at the corners, pages worn thin. I sat on the floor and flipped it open. The first page stared back at me. Things I will never allow again. I read the list slowly. 1. Their voices in my head. 2. 3. Feeling guilty for breathing. 4. 5. Shrinking so someone else can shine. 6. 7. Carrying what they refuse to fix. 8. I traced each line with my finger. They weren't just words anymore. They were promises I had kept. Luca peeked in. You okay? Yeah, I said, holding up the notebook. This was my survival plan. He smiled. Looks like you followed through. I didn't think I could, I admitted. Not really. But you did, he said. And you didn't burn bridges. You just stopped letting them walk all over you. I nodded. I used to think I was the weak one for leaving. Now I know staying would have broken me. I reached for a pen and added one final line at the bottom of the list. 5. I will never let someone else write my story. Then I crossed off all 5, one by one. There was no applause. No dramatic music. Just me, a quiet room, and the calm that comes when you finally let go. I stood and glanced around the empty dorm. Everything was packed. Everything I needed, I was taking with me. But this notebook? I folded it and slipped it into the side pocket of my bag. Some scars fade. Some stay. But they all remind you that you survived. As I walked outside into the sunlight, I whispered to myself, I didn't just leave them. I found me. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had anything to prove. Not to them. Not to anyone. I was no longer just the girl who got away. I was the woman who chose her own ending. And finally, I liked the story I was writing.